right, let's jump right into today's explainer. I want you to picture this. A 17-year-old kid named Arman. He's sitting by a window in his tiny room, heavy rain is absolutely pouring outside, and the city lights are just kind of flickering in the distance. And what's in his hands? Yet another rejection letter. Now, while all his peers were zooming ahead, getting into universities, launching businesses, making their own money, Arman just felt completely trapped in this endless cycle of no. Every single morning began with hope, and literally every night ended with just crushing disappointment. So his dad comes into his room quietly and gently tells him to, maybe stop chasing these impossible dreams. He tells him to just find something safe. And honestly, sometimes that kind of well-meaning advice from the people we love actually hurts way more than the rejections themselves. But that night, looking right into his mirror, Arman didn't surrender. Instead, he asked himself this incredibly pivotal question. Am I really a failure? Or am I just early? Okay, so let's look at the first phase of this, the invisible work and choosing to continue. The very next morning, Arman makes a definitive choice to just keep going. And he didn't do this because of some sudden magical burst of confidence. No, he did it based on pure, cold logic. He figured out that quitting guaranteed a 100% failure rate, but trying at least offered a chance. But let's be real, this pursuit isn't glamorous at all. This is what the daily grind actually looks like when absolutely nobody is clapping for you. It accelerates through days of forcing himself awake before sunrise while the rest of the city is fast asleep. It bleeds into weeks of rigorously learning new skills while everyone else is just chilling and watching TV. And it stretches into months of building quietly in the background even as people around him were actively laughing at his ambitions. It's a heavy, solitary effort that happens entirely in the shadows. And man, this journey was not easy. The rejections just kept piling up. His friends started asking those really uncomfortable questions like, hey, are you still trying that? Or when are you going to just move on? He'd stare at his ceiling, wondering if any of this effort actually mattered. But whenever the weight of it all made him want to throw in the towel, he clung to this one absolutely crucial realization. The pain of discipline lasts for a moment, but the pain of regret, that lasts for years. Which brings us to our next point, the illusion of sudden success and that one congratulations email. So, years pass, the grind continues, and then on a totally ordinary afternoon, an email arrives with one single word that changes his entire life. Congratulations. A company finally accepted him, and suddenly, as you'd expect, the whole world is celebrating his victory. People are calling him talented, gifted, so incredibly lucky. They saw all of this visible success, but society is completely blind to the invisible struggle, right? They entirely ignore the thousands of unseen mornings he spent wanting to just give up, the tears, the massive sacrifices. It goes to show that success always looks like an overnight thing to people who completely ignore the struggle. Let's move on to the true victory, returning to the old room. As time went on, Arman achieved all those classic standard markers of making it. He earned money, he bought this beautiful house for his parents, and he traveled the world to places he'd only ever seen in magazines. But one evening, he goes back to visit his old room. He sits down in that exact same chair where he almost gave up, and it suddenly hits him. His greatest achievement wasn't the money, and it wasn't the awards. It's the fact that success changes your lifestyle, but struggle changes your character. Arman realized his true victory was simply becoming the kind of person who absolutely refused to surrender. Because lifestyles fluctuate and money comes and goes, but that resilience, that deep grit baked into your character during the darkest times, that outlasts absolutely everything. Next up, the seed in the pavement and mentoring the next generation. Years later, a starry-eyed kid from the neighborhood comes up to him asking for his secret to becoming successful. And Arman doesn't hand over some generic lists of business strategies or networking hacks. No, he shares this fundamental truth. I became successful because I stayed in the game longer than my excuses. He explains to the kid that most people quit the exact moment life gets difficult. They stop literally one step before the progress actually shows up. Dreams don't die because they're mathematically impossible. They die simply because people stop walking toward them the second their progress feels invisible. To really drive this lesson home, Arman points down to this tiny little plant busting right through the solid concrete pavement. No perfect soil, no perfect conditions. Yet there it is, growing anyway. It's such a stunning visual metaphor. It proves that life ultimately rewards those who just continue growing, fighting, and pushing upward, even when they find themselves in a really harsh, unforgiving environment. This perfectly illustrates our next section, the lighthouse and surviving the storm. Which brings us to the most important part of today's explainer, your unfinished chapter. And a direct message right to you. You see, that single, simple conversation inspired that young boy to go out and build his own incredible success story years later. It proves that surviving your own storm literally turns you into a lighthouse for everyone else who is still trying to navigate those dark waters. So if you're watching this right now and you are struggling today, if you feel miles behind your peers, or if your hard work feels entirely invisible, I need you to listen closely to this. A bad day is not a bad life. A failure is not a failed person. And above all else, the chapter you are living right now is definitely not your final chapter. Society might make you feel permanently trapped by a setback, but life never once promised us an easy journey. It only promised us a meaningful one. So what's our action plan here? First, keep learning. Keep expanding your mind and your skills, even if your daily steps forward feel agonizingly small and insignificant right now. Second, keep building. Just lay one brick down every single day. Even if absolutely nobody is around to notice your slow, quiet progress, the foundation is still getting stronger. And third, keep moving. Because the difference between an ordinary life and an extraordinary one is actually really simple. Ordinary people stop when it gets hard, but extraordinary people just continue. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to carry with you today. The mountain in front of you is not telling you to stop climbing. It is simply asking, how badly do you want the view? Your future self is waiting for you to arrive. So how badly do you want to reach the top? Keep climbing.